Hey guys, Ron the Nut here. Okay, ready to start building the system, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to populate the motherboard. I've got the motherboard here, I've got the chip, I've got a couple of fans, that little 40mm fans that go inside the this thermal armor on the Sabertooth Z77, and I also have the EK Supreme HF, the nickel plexi. That's really nice looking, and that's got to go on there after I put the CPU on. And then I've got G-Skill RAM. Now this is 1600 megahertz speed RAM. The RAM that I originally bought for it was 2133, but it's 1.6 volts, and this motherboard doesn't have it on its this motherboard doesn't have this RAM, the 2133 megahertz RAM on its qualified vendor list. So this is fine RAM. I'm going to use it, and if I shouldn't have any problems overclocking with this. So that's one last minute change. That's the memory that was in my a different system that I'm not using. So yeah. So all right, I'm going to install all these guys here. First, I'm going to install the fans. Then I'm going to install the CPU, and then I'm going to install the order block. And then I'll install the RAM. Now normally I would set it up and test it on my high-speed PC bench, but since it's water cooled, that means I would have to put I'd have to put the stock fan on the CPU, and that CPU I know works, so I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to put it all together and fire it up for the first time in the system. So I usually don't do that, but I'm gonna build it all first and then turn it on. So you guys will get to see you'll see how the outcome of that goes when we get there. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to the Sabertooth Z77 motherboard here has two places for little fans to go underneath this thermal armor, and I plugged them into my test bed, and they don't sound that loud. I don't know that they're going to be heard in my system, but I am going to install them anyway and see how they work. Alright, so this is going to be installed like this. Oh. And then it asks you to put some tape with this foam block on the bottom to block any other flow. I think that's right. Okay. And this plugs in to assist fan 1. Yeah, there you go. Behind all the rest of the cable under the motherboard. And then this screw goes back on here. Okay, first fan installed, and then the other fan goes under here. Well, the manual says to install this fan with 4 screws. There are 4 screws, but this fan only takes 3. So 3 is what it's going to get. Next, we're going to install the CPU. Okay, here took off the cover, CPU cover. Now we're going to put the chip in. Alright, CPU is installed. Now what I'm going to do is clean it off. It was in my home theater piece motherboard, the Asus or ASRock Extreme 4, and I'm going to just do a little dab of, I like to use this ArtiClean thermal material remover, and just put a couple of drops on there. Let it hang for a minute. I already wiped it off with alcohol, 99.9% alcohol, but it doesn't get everything, and this ArtiClean does a good job of getting any remnants off. So you can see, I don't know, there's some right on there. So alcohol did a good job of getting all the big stuff off, but any tiny remnants, oops. Cleaning it with the remover. I put some thermal surface purifier, and this is also from ArtiClean. Or ArtiClean is the product. It's made by Arctic Silver Company. And this is just a purifier to clean off the to apply some thermal compound, and I use Arctic Silver's the MX4, Arctic Cooling MX4 is what I'm going to use on this chip. But before I do that, I think I have to mount a plate underneath to mount this guy here. So let me get the pieces for that. Okay. Well, this mount for Sandy Bridge processor requires this back plate. So it requires this back plate to be put under here. So alright. So we have the plate. Alright, now what I found out on here is there are a couple screws that are part of the back plate for the socket mounting mechanism that under this motherboard they actually touch this plate. So for the EK block to be mounted, they do provide you with some 2mm plastic standoffs, but then they give you actually 8 of them. And according to instructions, you only need 4 of them. Well, I double stacked them, and it looks like that is giving me enough height to actually mount these guys here. So I'm going to see if I can get this started. So what I'm doing right now is putting a plastic washer on the screw coming through the mounting plate through the motherboard, and I'm using these mounts for the so actually you might be able to see this one here easier now. This is the last one. So I've mounted the 4 standoffs. You put a washer on this side, and then you screw this guy in. So here I have all 4 of the mounting mechanisms and mounting posts in. And I'm just going to tighten it down with a screwdriver. So I've got, I'll see if I can bring it up to the camera. So for mounting an HF Supreme right under here under this plate, I've had to mount, I'd stack up 2 2mm washers. They're black washers that came with them, so there's 2 underneath each corner, and that allows this screw right here. There's two of them underneath this plate that were on an angle before. So with the two stacked 2mm washers, it clears it now. And so I have it. The post ready. I'm going to go test fit it in the case to make sure that it doesn't bottom out in the case. And the beauty of this is, of course, no, it does not bottom out, because on the back of the 600T underneath the CPU is that whole cutout. So this plate doesn't touch anything. It'll be just sitting there and mounted to the board just like this. So now what we're going to do is put some thermal paste on. I'm going to use the line method. Everybody has different ways of applying thermal paste, and if you've seen my how to apply thermal paste, I used to use a credit card method and cover the whole top of the processor with thermal paste. But I saw a video done by Arctic Cooling on how to apply their MX2, and it showed using the dot method, the grain of rice, a high five, one line, two lines. And it looks like one line does the job just fine. Also the dot in the middle, you know, the kind of the small dot, not really the size of a pea, but like a half a BB. That's probably the best. That seems to work. And also I'm going to do in the line work well. I'll put the link up for that if you guys want to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we now have, now we're going to apply the water block, and we're going to be able to make sure we can see this. So we have the logo. You can read Supreme HF, and I guess that's the end closest. So this is the way it's going to go on here, because it'll be in the case looking at you that way. Alright. Next, it's time to put the springs, and I like to put the springs inside the caps. So let's get them on and get them started. And now I'm just going to do, it says a star pattern, I'm just going to alternate crisscross until I get them all down. You don't want to go too tight on one side, all on one side and the other, so you do a crisscross. Until, it says, till you get them finger tight all the way down. And that's it. Looks like they all stop. Alright. Looking good. So we have to put memory in next. Should be, it is the beige ones here. And the beige one here, this is, alright, she's looking good. One thing that I realized I didn't do is I didn't put these washers underneath these springs. So, okay, so I got those flat washers underneath the springs, so that just protects it better. Alright, so the motherboard is now assembled, and I believe it's time to pop it into the case. So let me clean up some of this protective stuff under here, and I think I'm gonna put I'm only having the graphics card. I do have an audio card, but I don't know if I'm going to put that in yet. Let's see what the audio sounds like out of this. So I think I'm going to cover up some of these other slots for now. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, they have even thermal armor for dim slots. So the ones that I'm not using are going to be filled. Alright. Another one. And we have one for a PCI slot. PCI slot, kind of give it that finished look over here. And then there are some for the, hopefully they're easy to take out. Yeah. So, because I am not using this guy. And I don't plan on using this guy. And let's see. Oh, there is one more. Alright, time to mount him into the case. See if you guys want to take a close-up look. And then that's actually the shot. That's what it's going to look like inside the case. Black, some beige, and a little bit of white. And that's perfect. The black and white. Alright. Alright, now it's time to start putting the system in the motherboard in the case first. And I forgot so many times. Put in this, put in the I/O panel. I don't know how many times I've screwed in the motherboard, all excited to get it going, only to find out that I forgot to pop this guy in. So I'm going to do that first. Alrighty then. Next, line up the motherboard. One of the things that's nice is the 600T has one of the posts has a dimple in it, so it actually fills a hole. It actually lines it in there. So now all I need to do is make sure I have a magnetic tipped screwdriver, because this motherboard has some deep sockets that you or places you got to put the screws down into, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Oh yeah, perfect. So here's a shot along the top. You can see the motherboard nicely clears. There's a 8-pin connector, and then there is the port right down in the corner where the cable is going to come through. But this fan right here, where is it? This fan here, I've got to take the lead out and plug into one of those. Looking good. Okay, let me get the fan connected and the 8-pin connector snaked through there. I have the white NZXT extensions, so I gotta snake that through. See how that looks. Okay, you can see that I've got the 8-pin motherboard connector installed, and also the fan from the that white connector is the fan, the 40mm fan that's underneath that that cover right there. So the 8-pin motherboard power, a little white fan connector is the fan that's under here, and then you can just barely make it out. You can see that yellow wire. I wish that was wish I put, maybe I'll put some sleeving onto that so you don't see that yellow. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. Alright, and we have the 8-pin NZXT power connection. That little white one is the fan that is underneath here from the motherboard. That's the white connector up there, and then nicely sleeved is the black XSPC connector to the chassis found position on the motherboard. So those are the only connections up there. The other ports that you might be able to see are CPU fan, which I'm not going to use, and then CPU option fan. So those connectors are not being used. Now it's time to dress some of the motherboard connection cables down here. So I get that bundle out, and then it's time to install the power supply. Okay, and I've got the some of the cables now in. I have a Corsair case that has the original external USB 3.0 header, so I have a Lee adapter that I use to take it to ports so I can plug one in. If that's not covered up, I'm going to get there's another one just like it for a couple of dollars that's all black. So, and then down here I have to dress the other side in the cables, but I added shrink tubing to all the exposed USB and power connection wires. Now this guy here, I could use the Q connector, but I'm going to have the card cage here, and I already test fitted it, and it interferes right at that spot. So so anyway, so they're done. And then the HD header has the also has the what is it, the AC97 connection, and that's just tie right back in the cable. So I put a bunch of heat shrink tubing. So you shouldn't see this. It's down at the bottom. I'm going to hopefully tuck it behind the power supply, but I didn't want any bright colors standing out other than the colors from the motherboard. So we'll see how well I can do with that. Now it's time, I think, to put in the power supply and start routing some power cables to it. And after that, it's time to start connecting up the pump and the tubing. Okay, now I've got the power supply installed and some of the cabling in. So far actually only the main power supply cable and the 8-pin. I still have the VGA cable that'll have to come in. Then out down at the bottom, it's good you can hardly see them. That shrink sleeving I did on all of those cables is blending in good. The only problem I wish I could cover is those red cables there, but I think the way that has to bend, I even put some shrink sleeving on that too, so you really don't see the rest of it, but I can't without individually sleeving each of those areas there. I'm not going to have that. So hopefully that won't be a problem, or maybe I put something else there to cover it up. Okay, and next when I put the card cage in, because that's what I'm going to mount the reservoir and the pump on top of. And I also have to put a drive inside there. So, okay, next it's time to assemble the pump top and the pump and the reservoir right on top of that drive cage there, and then plan and run the tubing between the radiators and the block and the GPU card. Yep. So we've got the MCP 655 pump. I got to remove from its housing. I have the coolants COV RP 450 and the EK multi-option X2 Res 150. So take you through taking the pump top off of the factory SwiftTech is nothing more than removing this ring and taking the pump out of it. And that's all you need. There is an O-ring that comes with it, but you don't reuse that in the in most cases you never reuse that in the pump tops that you get. They have their own O-ring that's required. Okay, next is to assemble the pump into the pump top here, and first thing I got to do is remove this ring nicely from here, and there is an O-ring that sits in here. I'm supposed to take and put on around the pump. Then I fish my cable, power cable, through the back here. And then mount back into the top with the O-ring attached, and just if there's any binding at all, you stop, because you don't want to cross thread the dell ring or they seedle. Alright, now we have to I'm going to install this EK multi-res 150 to the top of here, and in order to do that I need to remove that tube and put it on the top, and also take off the base, because I'm going to screw it right on to the bottom of here. So see with the little screwdriver here. Yeah. And also, I guess this is an anti-cyclone kind of device that you got to put in here. So I'm going to mount this. Alright, so I got that on there. Now the next thing is to add some support brackets that I can put on this guy, bottom here. There's 4 of them. And if you notice, this power cord is sleeved a bit. That's because when I used it in the in my last install, actually even on my test bed, I had sleeved it. I didn't sleeve the whole thing because the rest of the cable wasn't exposed. I think this is going to be hidden away, so I should not have to sleeve the rest of this. Alright, so we have these set. Now I got to put it through the base here. screws attached to it. Loosen them all up a little bit, make sure everything's seated nicely, and then tighten them all down. I'm taking the tube off the bottom that was on this guy and putting them in the top here. And then putting this guy on here. Uh-oh. How about on this way? There we go. And then perfect. Actually lines up on the same sides here, so I plan on having this out in the front and this in the front here. We'll see how that fits and how it lines up inside of the case. Looks good. Looks good. Alrighty, that's it for right now. Next thing is to test fit it inside of the system and see how this looks, and see if how I'm going to mount this bracket, or if I need to mount this bracket. So that's what it's going to look like in there. Okay, I have the reservoir mounted on top of the pump, and the pump fitted on top of this bracket that you can actually use to mount to a that adjusts and spreads to mount onto a standard fan 120 millimeter fan mount. But I don't need to do that, and I think it looks great like that, mounted to the top of the cage. Now I can still remove the bottom two trays, and I could still put one on there if I needed to, but I only have one SSD and maybe one hard drive, and then with thumb screws on here I can easily remove those. So I think that's where it's going to go. Now I need to arrange some fittings and tubing, and right now I'm thinking the flow is going to go from out of here into the graphics card, out of the graphics card into the CPU, out of the CPU into the RAD, out of the RAD down into this RAD, out of this RAD into the reservoir. So but I got to make it the most efficient loop order, so that's still I think that's what I'm going to do, but I'm going to work that out. Let me go get some fittings and start laying out the tubing run. Alright, well, we've got I made a couple of changes with regards to the reservoir. I was going to have it coming out and going to the graphics card first, and then the CPU, and then through the radiators and back into the res. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go out to the right, out of the pump res into this rad, out of that rad up and across into this reservoir radiator, out of that radiator then into the block, out of the block into the graphics card, and then out of the graphics card back into the res. So and I have this bracket now fitted, held in place with these two brackets, and I think it's holding up pretty good. I can still get the drives inside of those guys there, and if I ever need to service it, I just take out those two thumb screws and lift it up. And so now it's a matter of running the tubing and getting the fittings all set right, and then finishing up the cabling, and then hopefully bleeding it. So next step is to continue on getting the tubing all set, and I'll show you once I run the tubing, see how it comes out. I also have to install the fill port, the adapters up at the top. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. The fill port's way in the back corner up there, just behind that fan, way in the corner. So I've got to run that to the top of the RAS. So let me get that one going, and then start running the rest of the tubing and the fittings, and then I'll show you how it looks. Okay, I got the tubing routing planned out now the way I definitely want to do it, but I need a couple extra fittings that I didn't plan for. I plan to use more quick disconnects, but it looks like I'm only going to use one. Down near the lowest part of the case back there, I'm going to have that quick disconnect, which goes all the way up and over to the rad. And I had to use extensions underneath that fan in order to get that out. I'm going to have to use another one there. I'm going to need some more extensions up there to come down below the fans. And so right now this is how I have it. I have also need a little bit of an extender to bring that up a little bit so the fill port and to the reservoir meets. So I have some fittings here, but they're all planned and taken, and I also need to take that graphics card, mount the water block, and get that adjusted too. So that's it for now. Next round is when the fittings come back in. I'll have the graphics card, water block installed, and then I should be able to finish and connecting all the tubing, and then be able to bleed it. That's it for now. Like if you like it, subscribe if you're so inclined. Thanks.